Project Power, the brand new Netflix film starring Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And when I saw the trailer for this movie, I won't lie, I was like, I'm on board. I love this premise. This premise is that there's a new drug on the scene, simply called Power. And Power, when you take it for 5 minutes, you get superpowers. But of course, there's a risk of taking the pill because A, you might die from said power, or 2, you don't have any powers and just blow up. That's your power. You just blow up and die. So there's a risk of that, and you have Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt having their own story that will finally collide. I try not to hit spoilers, but their story will finally collide. That is reaching to a point A to point B type story that, at the beginning, was really interesting. It was setting out the world, have a couple extra sequences to set up the different powers that, these characters, people who take them can have, and all that, and setting up all the personalities, because we also have this character named Robin, who's kind of like who's selling the drugs and selling power, and she's like the sassy teenager and all that kind of stuff, and setting her personality and setting up the two main leads of personalities and setting up the main plot and the main aspects of it and all that. And I was like, I'm bored. This is really neat. But then, like, when we hit Act 2, about, I'll say, like, 15 minutes in, it kind of slows down a bit to a very halted start that sometimes there's a peak of it, but then it kind of swoons off. Like, any stuff that's dealing with the background of Jamie Foxx's character, it really does give you a sort of investment, but then it drives off and it's like, okay, it just feels like they're just stretching this out, or just like they wanted to go to here, but they need to explain how they got here to here, and it just became really uninteresting to the point you're like, okay, I don't want to be that guy. But when is next scene where things shit just blow up, please? And talking about Robin, at the beginning, I personality-wise, I like a good character. But then she becomes that typical teenager character where, like, it feels like 20 times, probably wasn't 20 times, but it felt like 20 times, mostly Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character saying the words, "Robin, I told you to do X, Y, and Z. I told you to do X, Y, and Z. Why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? You started doing your whole thing." And you're like, okay, kid, like, what happens at the end, that's kind of all on you. Like, they said to do this and do this, but you started to do this and this, and you're like, for fuck's sakes. That's my mindset. This goes on, for fuck's sakes. And, talk about the third act, like, the climax, the big, action scenes kind of went too long. It was a little bit of the whole mini action sequence, and then, we think the villains are dead. It's like, no, they're still alive, or there's another wave of them to go. And you're like, okay, this is, I mean, we have seen those films before, but this is not a very intriguing, a very climactic thing, epic thing that they were trying to pull off, and it just didn't really well done. It didn't do anything well. But it's time for me to talk about the villains. Oh dear, the villains, the villains. The villains suck. I mean, absolutely, holy shit, they suck. You have the business villain who's like, we're good business people. You think we're bad? We're actually good. Look, because we're business people. Boring. There's just boring business people. And then 2, you have the seller, who is just a cartoon of a villain, who you're thinking, you have a beard. I'm surprised that you haven't smoked it or twirled it. And what's with you doing all these pop culture references to the point it's like the same? Me, I was like, oh, really? Like, I love saying, I'm a guy who pours out a pop culture reference every 5 minutes, but the way this character's doing it, it's like, seriously? Oh, a character gets ice powers, and they're like, Yeah, it's just like Frozen, and it's like, oh my god, oh god, I wish he just let it go that line, or he referenced Wolverine, displaying lizards who have pointy things coming out of their fucking elbows and stuff, just like Wolverine. And it's like, what? 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 You suck. You are a cartoony, unrealistic villain. I get it. I get it. We live. This is a movie that has like people with who are very flexible, like has no bones in their bodies, kind of thing. I get it, but yeah, this. Like, it's a good movie. It's a solid movie. It's a movie that, it's on Netflix, so, you can check it out and watch it and have a good time. It's a film, but it's a film that you watch once and you kind of don't want to watch again. It's like, yeah, I saw it. And, it is a film that doesn't hint a sequel and all that kind of stuff, so it's a good thing if you really like it. And that point where you're like, oh, I want a sequel. They don't hint it. They don't hint it. They just like that. So, yeah, it's alright. It's solid. It's a solid film with certain things that I'm like, okay.